Hello, my name is Simon Neal. I'm a partner in the competition practice here at Osborne Clarke. I wanted today to highlight three things that I think are worth keeping an eye open on during the course of 2023 on the competition side. The first one relates to digital markets. The CMA has for a long time had a very sort of tight focus on all things digital, but it's lacked the legislation, the statutory framework in order to be able to enforce against the large digital platforms. It is finally getting to introduce that legislation, which is due in Parliament in May of this year, all being well. What the legislation will do is place the Digital Markets Unit on a statutory basis and give it the powers to designate companies with strategic market power. And those companies will then be subject to effectively a new form of regulation, and that will have far-reaching consequences. For those of you who are keeping an eye on all things European, it is similar to the new framework that the European Commission has introduced across Europe, where you have the big digital platforms being deemed gatekeepers, and it's similar types of powers being introduced here in the UK. Secondly, we have a new Subsidy Control Act. This is the UK equivalent to the state aid rules, and that has been introduced as of the 4th of January this year. Although the overall thrust of the legislation is similar to the state aid rules, it is there to regulate the provision of subsidies to companies so they don't distort competition, there is very different process and procedure around that. And for those who are handing out subsidies, as well as businesses who are receiving subsidies, there's quite a lot to get your head around over the coming year as that new legislation beds in. And then thirdly, we have two new horizontal regulations, and this is around R&D agreements and specialisation agreements. And the UK has gone ahead and introduced these new regulations from the 1st of January of this year. It was supposed to dovetail with the European Commission, but the Commission has delayed the introduction of its equivalents in Europe. And that means the UK is slightly out of step with the European Commission. And there's a risk now of untoward divergence between the two systems. There are also going to be new horizontal guidelines introduced later on this year. And again, I think the UK will want to try to be as consistent as it can with the European Commission. But there's quite a lot of new material in those guidelines, particularly around agreements relating to sustainability and also agreements relating to R&D. And it's going to be interesting to see what those contain.